At the beginning of the film, Max McGrath is sitting on his rooftop, sketching the view in front of his house while gazing sorrowfully at the factory situated across the river. His mother, Molly, asks him to help her unpack the boxes of belongings inside the house and organize them. His mother explains to him that this is their final home, that they will not have to move anywhere else again, and that a new chapter of their lives begins right here. Max jokingly remarks that they have made new beginnings many times before, and that this marks their 9th attempt. As he opens a box and unpacks its contents, he discovers an old family photograph, which he gazes at with affection. It is a picture from the time when his father was still alive. His mother enters the room, and Max asks if his father had died in that nearby factory. His mother, with a heavy heart, confirms that yes, that was indeed the place. Suddenly, there is a minor power fluctuation, and the lights in the house, along with the television, go out. After his mother leaves, Max senses a strange energy radiating from his hands, an energy that becomes visible when he waves his hands in front of the TV. The next day, while riding his bike to school, he stops to peer inside the empty and silent N-Tek building. Just then, he receives a text message from his mother. However, the moment he attempts to use his phone to reply, the energy surging through his body causes the device to malfunction and shut down. He then resumes his ride toward school, narrowly avoiding a collision with a pickup truck. He tumbles off his bike, his head striking the ground with a hard thud. As he lies on the ground, the driver of the truck rushes over to check if he has sustained any serious injuries. The driver, a young woman, leans down to ask if he is all right. Max, making light of the situation, jokes that he manages to get into an accident just like this every year. The girl suggests that they meet at the same spot after school, offering to help him repair his bike. Later, Max arrives late to class and introduces himself to the teacher. Upon hearing his surname, the teacher asks if he is Jim McGrath's son. Max hesitates briefly before answering in the affirmative, a revelation that leaves the entire class of students stunned. The teacher remarks that his father was a truly exceptional and remarkable man. After class ends, he finds a small newspaper clipping stating that the Hall of Science has been dedicated in honor of his father, Jim McGrath. Reading this, he becomes emotional and clenches his fists in a mix of anger and pain. Little does he know that the surge of energy emanating from within him has just triggered a major event. After school, Sophia gives Max a lift in her car, dropping him off at his home. Upon arriving, she helps him repair his broken bicycle. Max thanks her and gazes at her intently. Suddenly, a radio sitting nearby switches on by itself, and a startled Max hurriedly makes his exit. Later, Max meets a man named Miles, who used to work with his father, and joins them for dinner. During the conversation, his mother, Molly, reveals that it was Miles who had persuaded her to return to this town, Copper Canyon. Miles explains that he works for N-Tek and is currently in charge of the company. Miles mentions that he too was present on the night the accident occurred, the very night his father met with a fatal mishap, and that he had tried to save him. Meanwhile, inside the N-Tek facility, a mysterious entity, referred to as the Subject, begins to glow within a water tank. Two scientists monitoring the entity immediately begin to investigate it. Suddenly, the water rises into the air, forming a crystalline web that resembles the structural framework of a chemical compound. When a security breach is detected within the containment chamber, the scientists immediately summon the security guards. A heavily armed security team arrives on the scene. They are given strict orders to prevent the mysterious entity from escaping. However, by the time they arrive, the entity has already broken out of the containment chamber. The flying robot he manages to outwit them and escape from the building. Upon the revelation of this truth inside the house, Max becomes anxious and distressed. At that very moment, the power in the house suddenly goes out. Max heads down to the basement located beneath the house. Once there, he resets the electrical circuit breaker. As he makes his way back toward the dining table, he catches snippets of a conversation taking place between his mother and Miles. Molly insists that Max is still young, and that he is not yet ready to learn the truth about what actually happened. Later that same evening, Max attempts to uncover the truth behind the events surrounding his father's death. He watches several videos related to the incident online, but his computer suddenly shuts down. Frustrated, he attempts to restart the computer. However, at that very moment, glowing blue energy begins to emanate from his hands. To contain the energy, he presses a pillow against it. But when he removes the pillow to check, the energy has still not dissipated. He commands the energy to cease, and he realizes that he can switch it on and off at will. When he utilizes that power once again, a surge of intense energy is unleashed, causing a complete power outage once more. The following day, he heads into the woods to test out his newfound abilities. He discovers he can use the energy to activate various objects. By accident, he generates an excessive amount of energy, causing a machine to short-circuit and burn out. The next day, in the school cafeteria, Sophia suddenly approaches him and stops him. Max is unable to hear what she is saying. Consequently, a girl standing nearby, annoyed by the surrounding chatter, steps in to interpret Sophia's words for him. Sophia asks Max to meet her the following day at 4 p.m. at the Thai restaurant on Main Street. Upon hearing this, Max becomes so excited that his powers inadvertently cause a nearby vending machine to malfunction. Several cans of soda tumble out of the machine. Other students immediately rush over to grab the fallen cans. Realizing his mistake, he quickly gathers his belongings and makes a hasty exit. Upon returning home, he researches his powers on his laptop and puts on a pair of rubber gloves to insulate himself against the electrical currents. He then approaches his mother and begins asking questions about his father. He remarks that the people of the town seem to know more about his father than he does himself. He has absolutely no idea what befell him or what caused his death. His mother mentions that she wishes to tell him many more things. However, it is possible that his story is not as complex as it seems, but rather quite simple. They remain completely unaware that a mysterious entity is secretly stalking him, sensing his power from just outside his home. The following day, he rides his bicycle to a Thai restaurant. All the while, that same mysterious entity continues to pursue him and his energy signature. At the restaurant, Sophia offers Max a drink called boba tea, leaving him both surprised and slightly bewildered. As they converse, a genuine and deep connection gradually begins to form between them. Sophia remarks that she knows a secret of Max's. Upon hearing this, Max is seized by fear and anxiety. However, in reality, Sophia simply meant that she often sees him wandering the school hallways alone. He does not seem to belong to any particular friend group. Consequently, Sophia suggests that he show her around the city so that they might become friends. When Sophia asks for his phone number, his phone suddenly malfunctions. At that very moment, a surge of intense energy begins to rise within Max's body. He rushes toward the restroom in a desperate attempt to regain control of his condition. Upon reaching the restroom, his state deteriorates further, becoming increasingly terrifying. This time, he is unable to contain his power. A brilliant blue light begins to radiate from his chest. He hurriedly apologizes to Sophia and makes his exit. He quickly hops onto his bicycle and speeds away from the restaurant. He heads toward a nearby forest and continues deeper into the woods on foot. Once he reaches a secluded spot, he screams out in excruciating pain. A luminous, lightning-like energy erupts from his body and surges upward toward the sky. The next day, Max wakes up and sits up in his bed. He feels a sense of relief, as his powers no longer seem as dangerous as they did before. He notices that his bedsheets and clothes are riddled with holes caused by burns. There are also wounds on his chest, leaving him feeling even more distressed and bewildered. Just then, he spots a flying, machine-like object, which startles him even further. The machine speaks to him in English, and it even knows his name, Max. Max asks it what exactly it is. It explains that it is a parasitic life form composed of silicon. It also reveals that its name is Steel. Steel states that he has come to protect Max, ensuring that the enemies intent on killing them are unable to succeed. Steel proceeds to explain the nature of Max's powers and energy. Max wants to learn more about his abilities, but Steel quickly diverts the conversation to other topics. Just then, Max's mother, Molly, hears the commotion and comes to investigate the source of the noise. Max quickly hides Steel inside a laundry hamper. When his mother asks about the strange sound, Max claims it was merely a bad dream. His mother warns him that he will be late if he doesn't get ready quickly. Steel explains that he can absorb the excess energy from Max's body. He enters Max's chest and draws the energy into himself. Later, the two discuss this matter in the woods. Steel reveals that he sustains himself solely on Max's residual energy. If he does not siphon off this energy, Max's body could explode, just as it nearly did before. Suddenly, they spot a black SUV in the distance. Several figures step out of the vehicle and, armed with guns, begin advancing toward them. Max warns that if those men discover that Steel is an alien, they will destroy him. The men overhear their conversation. So, Max and Steel quickly flee on the bike. Steel shows Max glimpses of some old memories stored within his mind. Max witnesses these events as if he were seeing them through Steel's eyes, and this helps him understand why the two share such a unique bond. Max asks what Ultralinks are, and Steel explains that they are incredibly powerful and dangerous entities capable of destroying the world. The two arrive at school, where Max hides Steel inside his backpack. Steel keeps talking incessantly, leading others to believe that Max is talking to himself, making him appear rather eccentric. Max suddenly runs into Sophia, who asks him why he had abruptly walked out on her the last time they met. Max lies, claiming he had to leave because he was suffering from a severe headache, and promises to make it up to her later. Max asks Steel if he remembers anything else that might explain why they are being pursued. Steel reveals that the Ultralinks had attacked him in the past and are constantly hunting for them. Steel adds that the Ultralinks possess the ability to manipulate the forces of nature and can even conjure up storms. Later, they head to an abandoned N-Tek facility, where Steel explains the nature of Max's powers in greater detail. Steel explains that if they work together, they can combine their energies to generate turbo energy, which vastly amplifies their strength and speed. Gradually, Max begins to learn how to properly harness and utilize his speed and strength. Steel attempts to teach him various combat techniques and strategies. Max is learning to use his enhanced strength to leap to great heights and perform various acrobatic feats. Steel then explains what happens when he links up with Max to equip him with a special superhero suit. When Max puts on the suit, he begins to perceive Steel's past memories. Within these memories, Max even catches a glimpse of his own father. Steel reveals that the storm in which Max's father lost his life was, in reality, it was an attack by Ultralinks. Max decides that he needs to go see Miles to discuss this entire situation. On his way there, he nearly collides with Sophia's truck, but manages to swerve out of the way at the very last moment. While Max and Sophia are talking, Steel warns him that there might be danger lurking nearby. Max spots a black SUV parked in the distance, which looks suspicious. Sensing danger, he quickly makes his exit once again. Max decides that he and Steel should separate for a while to ensure their safety. He asks Steel to somehow buy him a little time. Just then, Sophia steps out into the street and blocks his path. She immediately begins to question Max directly. Faced with this situation, Max asks Sophia to give him a ride to N-Tek. He explains that he doesn't know the way to the facility. During the drive, Max reveals that his father passed away when he was very young. Returning to this city, he finds it difficult to move past his old grief and memories. Throughout this journey, a stronger bond begins to form between Max and Sophia, and then Max starts to ask her a question. Now, they make plans to go on a trip together again in the future. Max and his group finally arrive at a facility called N-Tek, where Miles welcomes them. Max asks Miles to speak with him privately in a one-on-one conversation. Max wants Miles to provide further details regarding the incident that took place. Miles, an elderly man, hesitates to reveal anything. Miles explains that his father was working on a machine capable of harnessing energy to help people. This was his father's dream. Miles observes that the machine is drawing Max's energy into itself. Suddenly, another massive energy surge occurs, causing Max to flee in fright, leaving Sophia astonished back at N-Tek. As Max races toward home, night falls, and a violent storm erupts, one that he recognizes as the work of dangerous creatures known as Ultralinks. Max attempts to hide himself near a railway line. Max then hears a woman's voice. Using his energy, he helps her start her car, but in doing so, he ends up trapped within the storm himself. Max then takes shelter in a garage, but upon entering, a shard of metal pierces his leg. The building Max is inside suddenly explodes, leaving him once again exposed to the storm. Max comes face to face for the first time with an Ultralink possessing glowing red eyes. This alien creature has the ability to manipulate the elements, and it is the very entity that participated in the attack in which his father lost his life. Fortunately, Steel arrives just in time to help Max, and together they construct a suit of armor. Steel teaches Max how to attack an enemy, but an accidental mishap causes them to strike each other, resulting in them becoming separated. Eventually, they reunite, only to be confronted by an Ultralink. Max utilizes his powers, his turbo energy, to defeat the Ultralink. Steel's memory returns, and Max realizes that Steel had previously betrayed his father. Steel explains that he was actually fighting alongside Max's father, but Max refuses to believe him. Max presses on alone and discovers that his home is surrounded by armored figures. The figures spot him, but Max makes a swift escape and heads to Sophia to ask for help. Max borrows Sophia's phone, her truck, and a pair of rubber gloves to protect himself from electrical shocks. While driving away, Max uses Sophia's phone to contact Miles. Miles reveals that this type of incident has occurred before. Based on what they now know about Ultralinks, he suggests that they may have taken Molly to her father's old laboratory, located in a desolate section of the N-Tek facility. Meanwhile, Sophia calls Max's home, and Molly, who is safe inside, answers the phone. Sophia tells Molly that Max had arrived in a panic, hurriedly asking to borrow a car and a phone before speeding off immediately. Molly assures her that everything is fine, and says she will call Max later. Molly then turns toward the armored figures. They now obey her commands, so she orders them to hunt down Max. Back in the desolate area, Max discovers that Steel has powered down. Through his link with Steel, Max experiences a flashback to the night of his father's death, the night the Ultralinks attacked the laboratory. Jim, Max's father, was strapped into a harness so that his energy could be harnessed for combat. Miles, who was allied with the Ultralinks, stole Jim's energy and took control of him. His objective was to kill Jim by draining his strength. Jim instructed Steel to enter stasis mode and then deliberately overloaded his own energy, resulting in his death. Miles revealed that Jim McGrath was an alien and that his very nature generated unstable energy, specifically turbulence. Clad in red armor, Miles confronted Max. A battle ensued between the two, but Max proved unable to hold his own against Miles in his red armored suit. Miles wanted to keep Max alive in order to siphon his energy. Miles threatens Max, warning him that entering the core, the main energy center, would put him in danger. Left with no choice, Max complies. Steel reactivates, and Max apologizes to him for the earlier misunderstanding. Connected to the power generator, Max prepares to generate a suit of armor by overloading the core, just as his father had done. Now, clad in their respective armor, Max and Steel confront Miles. They attempt to defeat one another, and Steel activates his invisibility mode in an effort to knock Miles unconscious. They crash to the ground, and Miles drains their energy. Just then, armored figures arrive and open fire on Miles. They attempt to rescue Max, but are forced to retreat. As Miles pins Max against a wall, Max unleashes the entirety of his energy directly into Miles. Max's energy overwhelms Miles, and with a massive explosion, Miles is destroyed. Thus, Max and Steel win the battle. After the fight, Max and Steel regain consciousness, appearing visibly exhausted. Molly arrives and finally begins to tell her son, Max, the full story. The Ultralinks had been trying to capture Molly, so she had constantly changed her location to evade them. Molly hands the pendant to Max, telling him that he will soon understand its significance. Using the pendant, Steel illuminates the star trails left behind by his father, thereby creating a 3D map of space. Max seeks to reconcile with Sophia and apologizes for his erratic behavior. Max admits to Sophia that she was right, and thanks her by presenting her with a drawing he created himself. This drawing depicts the very moment Max first laid eyes on Sophia, a moment when, at the time, she had appeared upside down to him. Moved by Max's affectionate gesture, Sophia tenderly kisses him. The film concludes with Max and Steel, clad in their armor, preparing to take flight.